Hello and welcome to this video on dividing. Now, I've found, having taught maths for years and years, that dividing is something that really can confuse people. So I'm going to go right back to the very basics and talk about what actually is dividing. What does this funny line with two dots underneath it and on top of it, what does it actually mean? And one of the things that's a bit confusing is it means two separate things. It means sharing and grouping. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean. So the first thing it means is it's when you are sharing something. So I'll write that on this side. Now this is the way that's probably easiest to understand. So it's, imagine you've got 8 sweets or 8 counters as I've got here. So here we go. Let's get these counters on the paper. I've got 8 of them, 2, 4, 6, 8. Here they are. And I'm going to share them between these two people. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share them between this person. So you can see I don't do a lot of art teaching because I'm not really a great drawer. But here we go. So I've got 8 counters and I'm going to share them between these two people. Let's call them Tom and Tim. Yeah. So there's Tom and Tim, and I'm going to share these counters. So let's give 1 to Tom, 1 to Tim. Tom gets another one. Tim gets another one. Tom gets 1. Tim gets 1. Tom gets 1, and Tim gets 1 more. Now the thing with dividing and sharing is it's important they all get the same. I can't divide or share it by giving 1 to Tom and giving all the rest to Tim. This is not what dividing is. One of the really important things is that you have to share equally. So let me write that down there, just in case we forget that. You must share things equally. So let's do that again. So I've got 8. I'm going to write it here. And I'm going to share it or divide it between, how many people are there? Well, there are 2 of them. So if I share them again equally, really important, let's do that again. There's my 8. 1 to Tom, 1 to Tim, another to Tom, another to Tim, 1 to Tom, 1 to Tim, 1 to Tom, and another to Tim. And as you can see, they've all got, or they've both got the same amount. How many have they got? They have got 4. And that is sharing. Let's do another one, okay? This time I'm going to get 12. So I've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is the number I'm going to start off with. I'm going to start off with 12. And this time I'm going to share it. I'm going to divide it between, I'm going to have, let's have Lucy, and let's have Jane, and let's have Liz. So there's my 12, and I'm going to share them between Lucy, Jane and Liz. So I'm sharing it between 3 people this time. And again, they must be shared equally. So here we get 1 for Lucy, 1 for Jane, 1 for Liz, 1 for Lucy, 1 for Jane, and 1 for Liz. 1 for Lucy, 1 for Jane, and 1 for Liz. 1 for Lucy, 1 for Jane, and 1 for Liz. Now we're going to look and see how many they each got. Well, they've each got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I have 12 and I share it between 3 people, they will each get 4. So that's what sharing is. But we can also look at dividing as grouping, and this becomes really useful when we come to actually solving how to do dividing, which I'm going to show you in another video. Now what I'm doing in grouping is this. So let's write grouping up here. I'm going to show you exactly the same numbers. What I'm doing here is I'm going to put these counters into groups. So for those 4, so let's go back with my 8 that I've got here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these 8 counters And instead of sharing them between two people, I'm going to put them in groups of 2. Let's have a look. So let's write exactly the same down. So I'm going to write 8, and I'm going to put it into groups of 2. And let's see how many groups I've got. It's 1 group of 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2, 4 groups of 2. So what I've done is I've got my 8 and I've put them into groups of 2, or I've said how many 2s are there in 8. And I've got 1 group of 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2, and 4 groups of 2. So how many groups have I got? I have got 4 groups. And I can do that exactly the same thing. I'm going to do it again here. I'm going to write my 12 divided by 3. So instead of sharing it with 3, I'm going to say to myself, I'm going to put this 12 into groups of 3. So let me get my 12. I'll leave that there so you can see what it looks like. There we go. So I've got my 12 here, and I'm going to put it into groups of 3. I'm going to see how many groups of 3 make 12. So there's 1 group of 3. There's another group of 3. Here's another group of 3. There is a final group of 3. So I've grouped that 12. I've put that 12 into groups of 3. How many groups have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4. So giving me an answer of 4. So when I come to dividing, I can think of it either as sharing between the number of people it says to divide it by, or I can think about making it into groups, and each group is what this number here says. So I've got 12 and I'm going to put it into groups of 3. And this way here, sharing is kind of easier to understand, but when we actually come to working out and solving division problems, you'll see that when I start to think to myself of how many groups of 3 are there in 12, or how many groups of 2 are there in 8, this becomes in fact an easier way to work it out. So dividing, definitely tricky when we first start doing it, but as always, watch the videos, look at them again, go on to my next ones, look at other ones, and with a bit of luck it all should come clear to you.